Chelsea versus Bournemouth in the quarter-final of the Carabao or League Cup. Both teams do face a few injury concerns, with Eden Hazard being a doubt and Alvaro Morata being out injured for Chelsea. As ever for these cup games, the biggest question is how much will Maurizio Sarri rotate the team? Bournemouth are a difficult opponent, but Chelsea are still the favourites. To find out everything you need to know about both sides ahead of the game, make sure you watch all of this preview. Hello there guys and welcome back to 100% Chelsea for my preview of the Chelsea versus Bournemouth game in the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup or the League Cup, taking place tomorrow evening at 7:45 PM UK time, obviously at Stamford Bridge. And it's a quarterfinal of a cup competition, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm not sure what team we're going to field and what team Bournemouth are going to field, but I'm pretty excited about the game. Now, before getting into the preview, there are two other things that I've got to mention in today's video. Firstly, the UEFA have officially opened investigation into Chelsea for alleged racist chanting by the fans at the Vidi game in Hungary last week. The result of that investigation will be revealed in mid-January, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the consequences possible that we could face could be a part closure of Stamford Bridge for our next Europa League home match. Now, not like fully behind closed doors, like for example the Croatia versus England game was a few weeks ago, but one stand or so could be closed, depending on how that investigation goes. I can only say similar things to what I said last week already. Can we just stop being racist, for God's sake? It's almost 2019. I'll never understand why it matters what ethnicity, race, sexuality, religion, why any of that matters. Why does it matter what someone is? We're all just humans. Can we just stop being stupid, please? It's ridiculous. Racism just needs to fuck off, quite frankly. It really pisses me off. People call themselves supporters, and all this does is harming your clubs. It doesn't matter what club. It doesn't matter whether it's Chelsea or another club. It just needs to fuck off from any sort of life. But within football, it just harms your club. And, supporting is quite literally the opposite of harming, and it harms your club. So I don't understand why people do it, and it's really frustrating me. I know I'm kind of rambling on, or whatever you want to call it, but I just don't want to be associated with racists. I just don't want to be associated with racists. So people just need to stop all of this. They just need to stop all of this. It's depressing enough as it is. Of course, just earlier I mentioned the first Europa League game, home game, the next Europa League home game against our next opponent, could be held in front of a partly closed Stamford Bridge. So obviously let's talk about the draw that took place yesterday for the round of 32 in Europa League, and we were drawn against Malmo from Sweden. Now, from a footballing point of view, that's not a bad draw actually. Definitely not the toughest opponent we could have got. They finished second in the group behind Genk on 9 points from all 6 games, so definitely not the toughest opponent we could have had. Not easy, but still not the most difficult team to play against, especially because in February, although it will be cold, the Swedish league won't have started yet, so they won't be in a rhythm either, so it really shouldn't be all that difficult for us to go through. And also, it's not a particularly far trip for the team either, so fatigue doesn't come into it that much for the following game, so that's that's pretty good. It could have been Krasnodar or Shakhtar Donetsk or something, which would have been a much longer trip and worse for obviously the physical situation of the players. So I am pretty happy with that draw. But now enough about all of this, and now let's actually get into the preview ahead of Bournemouth, and obviously starting off by speaking of our opposition, Bournemouth. In the league, the Cherries currently sit in 11th on 23 points from 17 games, with 7 wins, 2 draws and 8 defeats, having a goal difference of -3, scoring 25 but conceding 28. And actually scoring 25 goals is actually very good. That is the joint top, best number basically with West Ham, if you look at the teams outside of the top 6. Now, Bournemouth's recent form actually looks absolutely horrible, with just 1 win and 6 losses in the last 7 games. But you have to look at who they played in those last 7 games. They played Manchester United, who sacked Jose Mourinho today, by the way. A bit mental. Didn't quite expect it, although really should have done either way. They also played Arsenal. They also played Manchester City, and they also played Liverpool. And also especially against Arsenal and Man United, they were pretty unlucky to go away with nothing from those games. So they faced some pretty difficult games. So just because they had 6 defeats in the last 7 games doesn't mean that all of a sudden awful. Just played some very difficult teams. They are a good team. There's no doubt about that. And when we beat them 2-0 earlier on in the season, it was a tricky game as we only scored our 2 goals. In the last 20 minutes, it was a very tricky game. And it will be interesting whether they'll again be a little bit more defensive than they usually are, or a little bit more defensive than I expected them to be ahead of that game. It will be interesting whether they'll do that again or whether they'll stick to their more usual self. But as we could tell from that game, they're pretty good at both things. Probably we'd have more spaces if they didn't sit back as much, so that would make things slightly easier for us. Probably why they did it, but it will be interesting to see anyway. Now, to get to the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup, Bournemouth beat MK Dons, Blackburn Rovers and Norwich, so not exactly the most difficult of runs, but here they are nonetheless, making for a difficult opponent for us now. Now, in the press conference, Bournemouth manager Eddie Howe today confirmed that they do actually face quite a few injury concerns, including Callum Wilson, obviously their star striker, if you will, who did return from injury for their last game, but Eddie Howe admitted that they kind of rushed him back because they kind of needed him for the game. But, like I said, they rushed him back, so he stated that they still have to be careful with him a little bit to make sure that he's fine for the upcoming busy period, basically. So to me, that might hint that he might only be on the bench and not start the game. We'll have to wait and see. But they also have other injuries like Tyrone Mings, Captain Simon Francis, Lewis Cook, and also Adam Smith. And with that many injury problems, they are likely to field close to their strongest team at least, simply due to a lack of options without significantly lowering the quality of the side. Because obviously, they still want to reach their first semi-final of any cup competition in their history. So they won't field anyone. They will field a strong side because they'll want to win. Just quickly about them tactically and what formations they usually use. Now, when we played them, they used their 3-4-3 formation and have done so in a few other games as well. But they've also used other formations like the 4-4-1-1 or the 4-4-2. And, like I said, they will be a difficult opponent, and I do expect a difficult game because they just are pretty good at most things. Not quite top 6 level good, but they are good. They can pass the ball. They're good on the ball. They know how to create chances. They're very quick on the break, extremely quick. They're good at defending, as we learned obviously when we played them and we struggled to break them down. Obviously, eventually didn't won, but it was still difficult. So like I said, I am expecting a very difficult game. But now that's really it about Bournemouth. We're now getting into Gianfranco Zola's press conference ahead of the game. Obviously, as you might know by now, ahead of the Carabao Cup game so far this season, it's always been Gianfranco Zola, attending the press conferences rather than Maurizio Sarri. And getting into it, Zola said that we have the ambition to win this competition. So while there will be some changes for tomorrow, we will field a strong team. And he also stated that it will be a difficult game against Bournemouth because they're a good team and, a team that have and do keep improving a lot. On team news, the Italian confirmed that Alvaro Morata is still out after picking up that knee injury away at Vidi last week, but he did say that he won't be out for too long, didn't specify how long, he thinks he will be out for though. And also said that Eden Hazard does still carry that knock that, from that heavy challenge that he suffered on the weekend, obviously against Brighton, and he will basically face a late fitness test, will still be assessed as to whether he'll be involved tomorrow or not. So I'm, not quite sure on that one just yet. And then he also was asked about him and found a lot of praise for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, which he said improved a drastic amount already this season, especially in his application on the pitch. He said that improved a lot because he said no one ever doubted, Ruben's qualities. No one ever did. Everyone saw his qualities. Everyone did. But, he said, his application on the pitch improved a lot, although then he kind of said he's an impact player. I'm not sure if I have a wrong, knowledge of the word impact player, but I found that a bit strange. Unless Zola, not being English, used the wrong word, because impact player to me is to, players that come off the bench and then do something from there. I want him to be a starter, please. So can he not just be an impact player, please? Thank you. And lastly, Zola was then also asked about any truth to the reports about Chelsea's interest in Bournemouth striker Callum Wilson. Zola stated that he is doing very well for his club and then said, and I quote, "is an interest not just for us, but many." So now, later on, he was then again asked about Callum Wilson, basically what he likes about him after watching him in preparation for tomorrow's game. And Zola again found just good words for him, saying he's quick, he's strong, but he's also good in the air and knows where the goal is. And certainly at least hinting at, at least a certain amount of interest in him from Chelsea. Whether we'll get him or not, obviously transfer videos will start as obviously December goes on. Obviously, transfer window coming up in January. But we'll talk about that. Obviously, that was at least a slight hint by Gianfranco Zola about an interest in Callum Wilson by Chelsea. Well, that was it for the press conference, and now coming to Chelsea and talking about a lineup and how we're going to approach this game and what I hope for and my score prediction as well. Now, as always for these cup games, I find it really tricky to predict the lineup. I mean, starting it off in goal is the first tricky one. Kepa started every Europa League game except Vidi, last week. But Willy Caballero started every cup game so far. And, that also includes the game away at Liverpool, which obviously was still a big game, even if it was in an early round of the, Carabao Cup. So if he started against Liverpool, I'd also expect him to start again tomorrow, although I wouldn't be, hugely surprised if Sarri did go for, Kepa tomorrow. Now, for the back four, for the back line, I don't expect too many changes. I do think that Christensen might come into the side for David Luiz next to Antonio Rudiger, simply because David Luiz, while he didn't play against Vidi, he still did travel to Hungary, while, Rudiger stayed at home, remained in London. So I think that will be a logical, change that we do make, simply because, David Luiz is pretty old, so, give him a rest here and there. I think that would be quite good. Azpilicueta, I think, will stay in the side, but about Alonso on the other side, as the left back, I'm really not sure. I would really like Emerson to start instead of him, but I'm really not sure he will. Maybe it will even be Zappacosta instead of Aspi, and Alonso will stay in the side, who knows. But, moving on to midfield, also there I expect a change or two, but I am pretty confident that N'Golo Kanté will stay in the team, simply because against good teams, which Bournemouth is, they are a good team, We just need Kante. It's as simple as that. Without Kante, we're pretty screwed against good teams, let's be honest. And I do then think that Loftus-Cheek or Barkley will start instead of Mateo Kovacic, hoping for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, but could be either of the two. And then whether Fabregas will get another start and obviously Regista role in the playmaker role, I'm not sure. Might stick with Jorginho, might go with Cesc, I'm really not sure. I think personally that Fabregas is more likely to start, and then if we need Jorginho, he'll just come on as the game goes on. Now, as for the front three, Morata is injured, Hazard is a doubt, and I don't think he'll at the maximum he'll be on the bench. I'm pretty sure that Hazard won't start. We still do have a few options, the most likely one being that Olivier Giroud just starts up front, but of course in theory we might just stick with the false line and have Pedro up top, for example, with Willian and Carabao Cup either side of him. Me personally, I wouldn't want both Pedro and Willian to start. I'd go with one of them on the right wing and give both of them a half, I'd say, so they're fit for obviously the Leicester game of the weekend and not like tired basically. Carabao Cup on the left and Giroud up front, I'll be fine with that. And then against Leicester when Hazard should be fine again, go with him as the false nine, and then Willian and Pedro either side of him against Leicester, like I said, in the weekend. So my predicted lineup, with a little bit of personal preferences in there, is Caballero in goal, obviously all of it in a 4-3-3. Azpilicueta and Emerson as the two fullbacks, then a centre-back partnership of Antonio Rudiger and Andreas Christensen, a midfield three of Cesc Fabregas, N'Golo Conte and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and then a front three of Carabao Cup on the left, Pedro on the right and Olivier Giroud up front, although the Carabao Cup one is more hopeful than actually believing that that's going to happen. I think it's more likely to just be Willian and Pedro on either side, to be honest. I just think that's what's going to happen. But, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that Carabao Cup actually starts. It would be great. Now, if we don't have a false line, it will, of course, be slightly different to, the Brighton game. Also the City game, but mostly different to the Brighton game. But overall, the general idea of our game will still be the same. Dominating possession and a lot of passing. And as ever, please, lads, move. Just move around when you're not on the ball so we can pass quickly, and therefore with passing quickly create chances, because then we can create chances, take those chances and win the game, preferably without making it really nervy. So like we did at Brighton. But my score prediction is actually going to be a little bit of a nervy result with, me predicting a 2-1 victory for Chelsea. But, that's really it for me. Leave me all of your thoughts ahead of the game down in the comment section below. Your predicted lineups, your, score predictions, all of it down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video. If you enjoyed it, we'd massively appreciate it. So make sure you smash that like button. Don't forget to check out my social media, which is last1507 on both Instagram and Twitter, as you can see over here. And also the links to both of them are down in the description below. So if you could follow me there, I would absolutely love you for it, basically. And also, of course, this is YouTube. So if you haven't already, do make sure you subscribe to 100% Chelsea, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell button and choose to be notified with all uploads so you don't miss any of your future videos. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, and I'll see you next time.